Jax was a con artist. Not a good one, mind you. His schemes were often as clumsy as they were ill-conceived, leading to more failures than successes. But he had a knack for ending up in the most ridiculous situations. Whether it was getting chased by an angry mob of alien merchants or accidentally selling a fake artifact to a high-ranking official, Jax's life was a series of unfortunate events. He was operating on the fringes of the galaxy, hustling low-level scams, the kind of scams that barely kept him afloat, but just enough to keep him dreaming. Think rigged card games, fake ID chips, that sort of thing. He'd spend hours perfecting his sleight of hand only to be outdone by someone even more desperate than him. Nothing to write home about. His living quarters were as unimpressive as his scams, a cluttered room in a rundown part of town. He dreamed of pulling off a legendary heist, a real galaxy shaker. He'd spend nights poring over blueprints and schematics, imagining himself as the mastermind behind the greatest theft in history. But those were just fantasies, fueled by cheap space whiskey and even cheaper sci-fi novels. His reality was far less glamorous, filled with small-time hustles and constant disappointment. One day, Jax found himself on the planet of Ethra, a melting pot of alien cultures and shady dealings. The streets were alive with the buzz of commerce and the hum of countless languages. It was the perfect place to disappear, or so he thought. Blending into the crowd, he felt a strange sense of anonymity, as if he could start anew. He was nursing a lukewarm drink in a dimly lit cantina, lamenting his latest failed scam. The cantina was a haven for the downtrodden, a place where dreams went to die. It involved a fake energy crystal and a very gullible tourist, a story best left untold. The tourist's confused face still haunted him, a reminder of his ineptitude. As he drowned his sorrows, a news report flickered on the cantina's ancient holographic projector. The image was grainy, but the excitement in the reporter's voice was unmistakable. The news was buzzing about the impending auction of the Cosmic Crown, a legendary artifact of unimaginable value. The Cosmic Crown was said to be the key to untold power, a relic from a bygone era. They said it could grant the owner control over the very fabric of space-time. Jax scoffed. Such tales were the stuff of legends, not the reality he knew. Control over space-time, yeah right, he muttered into his drink. He had heard many such stories, each more outlandish than the last, as if anyone could be that lucky. He shook his head, dismissing the thought as another pipe dream. Little did he know, his life was about to take a sharp turn into the realm of the absurd. Fate had a strange way of intervening when least expected. He was about to get very lucky, the kind of luck that could change the course of his life forever. The next day, Jax decided to try his luck at the Ethran Grand Bazaar. This was no ordinary market. It was a sprawling, chaotic maze of stalls and vendors, each more exotic than the last. The air was thick with the scent of alien spices and the hum of countless conversations in a myriad of languages. Jax had heard tales of the bazaar's wonders and dangers, but he was determined to make a name for himself. It was a chaotic labyrinth of stalls selling everything from exotic spices to questionable cybernetic enhancements. The sheer variety was overwhelming, with vendors shouting out deals and haggling with customers over rare artifacts and futuristic gadgets. Jax weaved through the crowd, his eyes darting from one stall to the next, searching for the perfect spot to set up his own little business. He was trying to sell a batch of authentic alien relics, made in his cousin's workshop on a backwater planet, when he bumped into a group of very large, very angry-looking individuals. These relics, though not entirely genuine, had a certain charm that Jax hoped would attract buyers. He had just started his sales pitch when he felt a heavy hand on his shoulder. They were dressed in sleek black uniforms, and each one had enough weaponry strapped to them to take down a small spaceship. Their presence was intimidating, and the crowd around them seemed to part like water, giving them a wide berth. Jax's heart raced as he realized he was in serious trouble. "You!" one of them growled, pointing a thick finger at Jax. The man's voice was deep and menacing, sending a shiver down Jax's spine. He tried to muster a response, but his mouth had gone dry. "You're the one they called the Shadow." The accusation hung in the air, and Jax could feel the eyes of the market on him. He blinked in confusion, trying to process what was happening. Jax blinked. The Shadow? That was a name whispered only in hushed tones in the darkest corners of the galactic underworld. It was a name that struck fear into the hearts of even the most hardened criminals. The Shadow was a legendary thief, known for pulling off heists that defied belief. A legendary thief who had pulled off some of the most daring heists in history. Stories of the Shadow's exploits were the stuff of legend, and Jax had heard them all. But he was no thief, let alone a legendary one. You got the wrong guy," Jack stammered, backing away slowly. His mind raced as he tried to think of a way out of this mess. He could feel the weight of their stares, and the tension in the air was palpable. "I'm just a humble—" Before he could finish his sentence, they grabbed him and dragged him through the crowded bazaar. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Jax was hauled away, his protests falling on deaf ears. "Yeah, humble is not the word I'd use," one of them muttered. The man's grip was like iron, and Jax knew there was no point in struggling. Jax was shoved into a sleek black hovercar. The interior was dark and foreboding, with tinted windows that offered no view of the outside world. It sped away, leaving the chaos of the bazaar behind. The hum of the engine was the only sound, and Jax's mind raced with questions and fears. Jax was both terrified and confused. He had no idea why they thought he was the Shadow, and the uncertainty gnawed at him. Why did they think he was this Shadow character? He replayed the events in his mind, trying to find any clue that could explain the mix-up. And what were they planning to do with him? The possibilities were endless, and none of them were good. "Look, there's been a misunderstanding," Jax tried to explain, but the thugs just laughed humorlessly. Their laughter was cold and devoid of any real amusement. "Sure, pal, sure, the boss is expecting you." The words sent a chill down Jax's spine. Who was this boss, and what did they want with him? He was taken to a luxurious penthouse overlooking the city. The contrast between the opulence of the penthouse and the grim situation he found himself in was stark. The view was stunning, but Jax was too busy sweating profusely to appreciate it. His mind was consumed with fear and uncertainty. This was definitely not how he planned to spend his day. He had hoped to make a few sales, maybe even enjoy the sights and sounds of the bazaar. Instead, he was caught in a web of mistaken identity and danger, with no clear way out. The boss turned out to be a tall, elegant woman with piercing blue eyes and an air of icy authority. Her presence was almost otherworldly, commanding the room without uttering a single word. She introduced herself as Zara, the leader of the notorious Black Nebula syndicate. Her reputation preceded her, a name whispered in the darkest corners of the galaxy. "I understand you're the best in the business, Mr. Shadow," she said, her voice smooth as silk. It was a voice that could both soothe and command, a dangerous combination. Jax considered denying it again, but decided it might be healthier to play along, at least for now. He had heard stories of those who crossed Zara, and none of them ended well. "The one and only," he mumbled, trying to project an air of confidence he didn't feel. Zara outlined her plan with meticulous detail, leaving no room for error. She wanted Jax to steal the cosmic crown from the heavily guarded auction that evening. The cosmic crown was not just any artifact, it was a symbol of power and prestige coveted by many. In return, she offered him a hefty sum of credits and safe passage off Ithra. The offer was tempting, almost too good to be true. Jax, knowing he couldn't pull off a milk carton heist, let alone steal a legendary artifact, almost choked on his own spit. The enormity of the task was overwhelming. "Listen, Zara," he began, "I'm flattered you think I'm capable of such a feat, but—" His voice trailed off, unsure of how to continue. Zara cut him short, mistaking his nervousness for modesty. She had no time for self-doubt, especially not from someone she believed to be the best. "Of course, I understand. Discretion is paramount. Rest assured, we've taken care of all the details." Her assurance was meant to be comforting, but it only added to Jax's anxiety. She handed him a data chip containing blueprints of the auction house, security protocols, and a detailed escape route. The level of preparation was staggering. "Don't disappoint me, Mr. Shadow," she said, her eyes cold. It was not just a warning, it was a promise of what would happen if he failed. "My associates will be in touch." The words hung in the air, a reminder that he was now under constant surveillance. Jax left the penthouse in a daze, the data chip feeling heavy in his pocket. Each step felt like he was sinking deeper into quicksand. He was in too deep. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. He was way out of his league. He was supposed to steal the most talked-about artifact in the galaxy, while everyone thought he was a criminal mastermind. The irony was almost laughable. How did his life get so complicated, he wondered, staring at the bustling cityscape of Ithra. The lights of the city seemed to mock him, each one a reminder of the impossible task ahead. News of the Cosmic Crown heist spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Everyone was talking about it. The media had a field day, broadcasting holographic images of the Shadow, which, unfortunately for Jax, looked suspiciously like him thanks to Zara's thoroughness. across every news channel. Bounty hunters, their eyes gleaming with greed, flocked to Ithra, all eager to collect the hefty reward placed on his head. Jax became the most wanted and least likely criminal mastermind in the galaxy. He spent the following days dodging bounty hunters, hiding in seedy cantinas and even shadier alleys. He was running on fumes, caffeine patches, and sheer dumb luck. It was a miracle he hadn't been caught yet. Every time he thought he was in the clear, another bounty hunter would appear, blaster drawn, yelling, "Hold it right there, Shadow!" He even considered turning himself in, hoping that if he explained everything, they'd go easy on him, but then he'd remember the look on Zara's face when she spoke about people who disappointed her. He shuddered. He needed a plan, and fast. He had to clear his name, but more importantly, he had to survive.